All right, we're getting into our last chapter on statistics, but this time we're really focusing on what it looks like when I put it into a more graphic representation. Looks like different, we've got number lines and pie graphs. So this is going to look like a bar graph, but this today is called a histogram. So histogram having nothing to do with your grandmother, but it does have to do with, in a sense, history, or looking back at a sequence of things that go in order. So let's look at some of these. All right, so here we go. We start, of course, with grades. Here's some exam. And you can see that there were, looks like maybe 55 students. This is probably a class in college. Very often they go by points, not by percentages. So you see in the middle here, somewhere in the 50s, maybe low 50s would be the mean. But visually, you should be able to see it on a graph like this. We don't know exactly what it is unless we were to look at the actual data. But we do know that the data is falling in these categories with only a few people either on the high end or a few people on the low end. Now, what you need to know from this, aside from the mean, the median, the mode, is when you look at what looks like to be a bar graph, how is this different? Well, first of all, it has intervals. This right here, oops, sorry, let's get it in pen mode. This right here on your x-axis is always going to be a set of even intervals. And that's what is different. They have to go in order and they have to be even intervals. This is not like if I say, what's your favorite ice cream? And the choices are strawberry, chocolate, and vanilla. It really doesn't matter what order you go in. But in a histogram, it matters that you go in a sequence and that it's always even. So you see in this one, everything goes by tens. And of course, on the y-axis is the subject of our discussion, which are the students. How many points did they get? All right. What else do you need to know about a histogram? Do you notice that the bars, in a bar graph, the bars don't have to touch each other. On a histogram, they do. Because if I said I got a 10 on this examination, you notice that that 10 is right where the blue and the maroon touch each other. That's the 10 mark. So I am right in the middle between the lowest 10% and the next 10%. Whereas if I got a 65, you'd notice I'd be over in that, what is that, kind of lavender blue box between 60 and 70. And I'd be within that box. But everything has to go on a number line, whereas if it was apples, oranges, bananas, or types of ice cream, we wouldn't care. And we wouldn't need to make sure that the bars touched each other. Don't forget also on your y-axis, those always have to be even intervals. This is just like any other x and y-axis you've used before, but this time it is telling us some information about our data in a way that we can see how the data is kind of all one thing, but yet as one group of data, it's divided into these little sections, and each section, in this case, has 10% of the data in it. All right, let's look at the next one. Well, in this case, it's not 10% of the data. There are 7 boxes, so each one would not be 10%, would it? It would be more like, oh, what's 7 times, would it be 15, 16%? Anyway, so each one of these, obviously, it's not 20%, then there'd only be 5 boxes. So, I don't know, 15, 16, no, 16, 17% in each box. Notice that each box has only 2 responses available, except for the last one. So let's look at the first one. Below 1, I think that would be the same as 0 or 1. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. Notice how everything is connected. The waiting time is actually not in even minutes, because you know that when they would be collecting this data, they'd be collecting it in seconds also. So if I said I waited 2 minutes and 2 seconds, I would be in that third category. Whereas if I said I waited exactly 2 minutes, well, I'd be on the line, wouldn't I? Halfway between those, the second bar and the third bar. So make sure that that makes sense when you look at that number line. There's your x-axis. It's just a different way of laying it out. Notice that each bar is the exact same width. All right, there's one more thing that you need to know about these, and we'll look at one last graph to do that. And that's called a frequency table. Now, here's our final result of our data. However, before we got to this point, we didn't have just numbers on a page randomly placed. We actually grouped our numbers together. In the last chapter, we were showing you a dot plot where we just put little dots on a number line to show you. But that gets a little bit messy, because sometimes our data, we have hundreds in each category, and so we wouldn't want to put 100 dots above a number line, would we? So this is what it's going to look like. We would have had a table. Probably it would have taken up a lot of space, but I'm just going to kind of rough one out up here. And I'm going to show you how this data would have been organized. We would have said, well, if there were 0 to 10 responses, we're going to put them here. 11 to 21 here. 22 to 32 here. This is getting a little messy, isn't it? 33 to 43 here. 44 through 54 here. Now you notice the data range in each of these is 10, right? 0 to 10. And it goes all the way. I'm not going to even keep going there. But if I look on the y-axis, I can see that for this first category, it looks like about 50. So in some places, you might even see this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know where I'm going with this, don't I? I need 10 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Whoops. That's hard to do up at the top of the page. It doesn't want to cooperate. All right, there we go. So you'll see some, we call these frequency tables. Let's write that down. Frequency tables we actually tally our responses. So we know that all of our responses have to be in certain categories before we ever begin gathering the responses, and then we simply just mark them off in the appropriate category. But it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe we collected it and put it into a computer and just got a number. So in that case, in this next section, it looks like we had 300 responses. Number 300 was the number of employees in that salary category. In the next category, looks like there's about 250. Do you see how my x and my y-axis are actually coming from a table? And 33, that looks like 400. And the next one looks like about 550. Okay, now we begin by collecting our data. Our data always should be put into something to organize it. If you're putting it onto a histogram, it has to be organized into intervals. You have to always decide first, what's the appropriate thing from this set of data? How should I arrange this? So we said for salaries, we're going to do it by $10,000 in each category. And then on the y-axis, you just are telling how many employees did you count, or did the computer tell you, or however you got that information. So from this frequency table, whoops, I forgot the word table over here. From the frequency table, I create my, my graph. And that's all you need to know.